Hello, hello, hello. This because I did a video the other day looking at some press kits, and this was one of the games that was kind of looked at there, and it looked kind of neat. I think the way it was written about in the press kit was maybe a little bit confusing or a little bit kind of unclear about what type of game it was, because it was sort of described as a strategy game and described as a puzzle, and I want to play it because it looks nice, looks chilled out, but I also want to try and work out how I would describe it if I was trying to write that marketing copy. Take a look at the controls. Zoom, rotate planet, place block and rotate block. That kind of zoom implementation feels nice. I have to scroll quite a bit to zoom in and zoom in, but feels nice. This is the planet we start off with, and I've got some blocks here. Can I place them in the water or on the land? Okay. So it says I place things adjacent to the other type of thing. So the way that this interface on the left is working is the color in the center is the color the block is, and the colors around the edge are the color that it scores from touching. So I need to alternate between mountains and forests to score points. But I don't see any variations on that yet, but let's just see how it goes. And I can't place in the water, so I'm building the continent. The continent's already there, and I'm sort of decorating them, I guess. And then I know that needs to go next to mountains. So there's so many good helper mechanics or UI stuff that I can see here that is really neat. So the way it's highlighting which ones are going to score for me, that's really nice. So I'm gonna do that. They're kind of spooning. The forest is spooning the mountain, because that scores on all of them then. I've just checked this stream on the YouTube stream, and it is still marked as horror games. So, restream is not working properly. That's good. Which is a bit poo, because it's a paid service. It's a paid service, guys. When I click update titles and I change the title, it needs to update. I just had to manually update it in YouTube.
But then it's very tight, and obviously to get through there's only really one line.
And yeah, it's mislabeled on all of the platforms. Amazing. Well, at least it's them doing it. You know, their thing is broken. It's not just me being a dumbass at streaming software. Okay, so basically you've got to play 3 out of 5. I think that's what this indicates based on what I just said. Yeah, this is a very good step-by-step tutorial. We talked about tutorials on the stream quite a bit last night, and how you really need to give one instruction at a time and not explain multiple things to the player, like without allowing them to do something, because they will stop reading the text if you're not giving them something to do. Oh, this one needs red. Okay. So it looks like there's not gonna be any kind of tangible difference between the types of blocks apart from how they look and how they score. This does raise some questions about color blindness on these icons over on the left. If you want this to be accessible, there needs to be more of a differentiator than just the color, because this red and this green is gonna just not show to, I don't know if it's like 5 to 10% of the population. It's quite a big chunk of the population. Is the old red-green color blindness. So the way that they usually get around it in UI design is to make sure that as well as the color, you have like a texture, like a stripe or a pattern. And you could already imagine how this would have a triangular pattern on it to look like trees, and then it visually matches up more with this, because the actual blocks in world are fine, you can tell them apart. If you put this through a color blindness filter, you'd be able to see which was which. But you wouldn't be able to tell these icons on the left apart. So there's a small accessibility issue there. That's the wrong type. Oh, ooh. Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely not be using the word strategy for this in any of the marketing, because I did say the other day, if you're saying your game is strategic and you're saying your game is also a puzzle, it's very unlikely that your game is really emphasizing both of those things, because they do mean different things. And there is a bit of an efficiency puzzle here. I'm not even sure I'd call it a puzzle game though. There must be a name for, I mean, just like a cozy decorating game that has a bit of scoring in it. Oh, I'm drawing a blank at the moment. It's very satisfying though. Seeing it go from being blank to that, it feels nice. It's nice to see the mountain ranges as they build up. I mean, I would call this a god game, because that is a category of game, and that is what we're doing here. And I would call it minimalist, and I would call it a minimalist god game. You're building, I wouldn't necessarily say you're solving a puzzle, because it's quite contextual, right? There aren't puzzles here that someone has designed for us to solve. It's more of a procedural thing of just trying to fit these things together with the best efficiency. And I know that is still technically a puzzle, like Zachtronics games are still puzzle games, right? But it's not what most people think when you call something a puzzle game, which might not be great for marketing something, but it's fun, it's enjoyable to do, it has a lot of toy factor. And I really appreciate I've been sent this one, actually, because it's definitely a sort of niche that I like. You know, I really liked Mini Metro. I really like things that are just kind of chill, nice, simple, elegant implementation of an idea. That's like something I'm a big fan of. Okay, new planet score 188. This feels a little bit lacking in context. That's what I've scored so far, right? But I'm not really sure what it means. Yeah, if anyone's dropped into the chat, sorry if this is a bit impromptu. I'm trying to make sure that when I do have my first look at games, I do kind of do it in front of people. So that you can see me think out loud about stuff if you want to. But at the moment, my sort of work and family schedule is a bit all over the place, so it's not easy for me to block in specific hours for streaming, so I need to just sort of do it as and when I can. So that's why you'll see me pop up like this. Sorry if everyone got a bunch of random test streams pop up multiple times yesterday. I was just trying to get Restream to work. So far, my feedback from the first level is I think score could be more prominent, and accessibility wise, these are going to need some sort of pattern on them to differentiate the colors. It's a very good interface, the way this works, the kind of counter that tells you, you know, you're only going to play 3 of these 5 is good. And I've played a fair few board games that do this kind of tile laying thing, and it is just an inherently pleasing thing to do. You know, it's that toy factor, and if you're making a game, whatever type of game you're making really, if you can look to sort of have part of it function as a toy, right? So even if your game had no goal, no challenge, what part of it would be fun to just play around with? And I can't remember, sorry, I can't remember who it was in our Discord the other day was bringing up the Jesse Shell game design book, The Art of Game Design, and how Shell has the idea of the lens of the toy. So looking at your game as if it was a toy, what in your game would just be fun to do or play with, even if it was like an aimless activity with no sort of, you know, threat of losing, your character can't die, what's just fun to play around with. And this is a nice activity even if you take away the scoring. So I don't know if I'd want to do it for ages and ages. I don't know if we get more depth in other levels, but this is a very, very good start, and I'm very impressed with how all of the kind of tactile parts are implemented, and these kind of bits that illustrate what you're going to score, really good. And the thing that you get to make is really pretty. Oh, I don't have many places to put this. Maybe over here. And it's also great that you start off with this big open thing and it gets more full up and then you have less choices. So you start off thinking, oh, there's nothing to this, I can put anything anywhere. And then as it develops, it's gonna get harder and harder to find the optimum place for something, because you've blocked it all up, you know? These are gonna really annoy me. It'd be nice to occasionally get like a one-piece thing that lets you fill the gaps. There's a board game called Patchwork about building a patchwork quilt with tiles like this, and that has these little space filler pieces that you occasionally get, and they kind of help solve that problem of having a gap. Gonna score nothing for that there. Why did I do that? Oh, I'm an idiot. Look at these. So I'm never going to get pieces to fill these, which is kind of frustrating. And it's a frustrating situation I've put myself in, which might lead to a kind of interesting game in the long run, because you try and avoid that, right? But it'd be nice to have some way to fill them in. I think that's what most people would be wanting in this situation. Lots of things I'm impressed with. Few things that I think might lose their novelty very quickly. I don't think a game like this needs to be super deep in terms of like providing you with loads of variety and levels and stuff, but there's got to be something more than these 3 pieces, and we will just have to wait and see if there is. But it makes me want to play more, which is a good start, right? I often get games on here where, you know, my experience of the first 5 or 10 minutes just makes me think, oh yeah, I don't want to see anything else that this game has to offer. But this is not doing that. This is making me want to see more, and that's a very good place to start. Ah, here we go. Here we go. Now we're getting the gap fillers, but I only get to pick one of them. That's a juicy little decision now, isn't it? Because... yeah, that's good. Okay, so it does start giving us those tiny pieces, but it kind of waits until you've done a lot of the map, which is good. That's great. I mean, I don't know if that was just a fluke or if that is a cleverly orchestrated part of the structure of these levels, that it gives you the smaller bits later on when you're going to need them. Don't know. That is exactly that shape. There's no more space left on this planet, but you can start expedition to new planet. I think I would have liked to fill in the gaps, or for the gaps to look a bit more like a place, because they don't have a texture. They look like an empty space, and that kind of feels unsatisfying when you finish it. We've got red planet now, so this will probably be why we are only getting one sort of, well, 3 colors of tile, because they all change when you go to a different planet. Okay, so instead of sea here, we've got canyons. I'm going to start on a smaller area and try to fill it up. Try and fill these awkwardly shaped bits first. Yeah, we're getting like different variations in tiles. That's really cute. They don't have any functional difference to them, but it's very nice that we get them. These are even closer together to someone with red-green color blindness. These shades of orange and red would be really like no good. Just out here giving out accessibility consultant advice for free, because I'm nice like that. Oh, that one there. Yeah. So yeah, there is a puzzle here, and there is some strategic thinking, but I would be wary against calling this either a puzzle game or saying strategy too much when you're marketing it, because it's so light, it's so gentle. I would call it a minimalist god game, although I understand that there might be places where the phrase god game is not it's not a cool phrase to use, right? If you come from a place where you're not allowed to pretend to be God in a game or whatever. But I mean, it's thematically there in the game. But if I was going to put it in a genre category, yeah, I would call it a minimalist, chill or cozy god game. If you're a random person listening to the stream and you're wondering why I'm fretting so much about what genre this is because I looked at the press kit the other day as part of a video I did, and I was talking about how when you're writing marketing copy for a game, you need to be quite precise about what is in the game. And if you start saying that there is strategy in the game and the player isn't really thinking more than a few steps ahead, then there isn't strategy in the game, and then you sort of leave people annoyed because it's not really what they thought it was going to be. And like I just said, there's some strategic thinking involved in what I'm doing, but not enough to use the word strategy in the marketing of this game, I don't think. You know, I just said a minute ago, I'm going to try and fill up the awkwardly shaped bits first. That's a strategy. But it's also just like a kind of fun little challenge I've given myself. It's not something that is crucial to finishing a level of this game, right? It is not the core of the experience of this game. I would be interested to know if all of these levels are handcrafted or if they're generated, because it seems like the sort of game where you could just endlessly generate things for people to do. Now, thinking about adding more complexity to this, if you wanted there to be a bit more to it, right? hang on. I want to know where those 5 points are coming from. Am I getting them? Am I also getting them for attaching to these? Because there could be multiple scoring conditions, right? I could be scoring for placing this one next to the right color, but then also placing it next to its matching color in the center. If those were both counted, there would be a lot of additional depth here without necessarily making it hard to think about. I played a board game recently called Calico that was about cats and blankets or something. It was very abstract. It was an abstract game about putting tiles down, but that had so many different adjacency rules of scoring for putting 3 of these together, or scoring for putting this next to nothing that matches it and stuff like that. And I'm not saying you need to go for that level of complexity, but I think this could handle one additional step of complexity of, you know, I put this next to the red ones and I score for that, but then also if I get it next to the central color, I also score for that. I think that would be really neat. But maybe you've already tried it. Maybe the developer has already tried that and realized that doesn't work. So I could be suggesting something that was a sort of idea that for whatever reason was already tried and didn't make sense in the long run. I love these Martian forests. I thought they were mushrooms at first, but they are just the trees kind of recolored, which is fine. Get 4 this time. Really overthinking this now. That's nice. You're sort of always trying to leave at least 2 pieces free each time so that you can come back later and put more stuff down. Almost like there is some kind of strategy involved. But again, there's a difference between how words are used in marketing and sort of what actually is happening when you're playing a game. That one, can that fit around there somehow? I don't want to leave any little orphaned 1 pieces on their own, because that was upsetting on the last level when I had so many left over. That's sort of what you want to happen in this sort of game. And I don't mean as a player, I mean as a designer. You want the player to sort of mess it up a little bit and then think, well, that's what I want to do better at next time. There's a great what's it called? There's a great video by Cool Ghosts, which is Matt Lees and Quinn's from they do Shut Up and Sit Down, they do the board game show as well. There's a great video by them where they talk about Wilmot's Warehouse, which is quite an abstract indie game about sorting things like this. And Matt Lees sort of makes the point that people really love solving problems that they've made themselves. You know, so in this kind of context, that what I just said about my last level is an example of that. You know, I messed up a little bit, I left these gaps, and I'm like, oh, okay, now the aim of the game is to not do that. And that's like a weird OCD thing in my brain that's happening. It's also part of how the game's scoring system works, but it's like a self-chosen goal, really. Because the game hasn't said to me, oh, look how messy your planet is. You left some tiles. You need to not leave some gaps. I sort of was allowed to decide that for myself, and that feels quite powerful. It now gives me this thing that I want to strive to do each time I play a new planet, which I think I'm gonna... I don't know, I might do one more after this, because this is genuinely enjoyable to do. And if anyone is watching this either live or afterwards and you're working on a game and you're sort of wondering, why does Joe like this but people send him much more, you know, kind of much more advanced games and he's not excited about them? It's because I would rather see you do something simple that is really well executed than something complicated that is really broken. Because those things you probably need to do them as learning projects, yeah, whatever you're working on, your super complicated RPG thing that you're trying to do, you have to do those to sort of learn how difficult it is. But this is like this feels like the product of someone who has decided they are making a thing for people. And they've got a good sense of what it is, what it isn't, and we even saw that in the press pack I was sent of like what it is not, what it does not contain. It just knows what it's doing, and it's doing it very well, and that's what I like to see. I like things that are simple and elegant. See, now it needs to count up the spaces that are left and tell me that I suck. No, it doesn't need to do that, but that's what I feel like. Okay, now we've got black tiles and blue. Is that the sea? Oh, hang on. Is this the opposite of the last one, so I can't place on the black? Okay. Okay, I did that a bit randomly. So I did wonder, because I was going to say, if this is the sea, it shouldn't have the hexagons on, but it is actually. This is the buildable area, which is why it has the clear hexagons, and then this is the unbuildable area, which is why it doesn't have the lines. I'm not sure I understand what that's meant to be, but it's cool. I'm not sure what I would talk about if I was going to do a longer video on this game, though. Maybe minimalism in general. Oh, this is so hard. It's so hard to do it right, you know, to get it how you want it. That's good. That's what it should provide. Nice. Yeah, I think what I would really love, and I don't know how to achieve this, so this is a total, not even a suggestion, just a speculation on something that might be enjoyable for people. I feel so geared towards not wanting there to be solitary holes like this that I think if there was a way to earn a gap filler and it was like a special thing, then that would be a really strong motivator. And again, the game Patchwork, which is a quilt making game, has that. It has like a few leather patches. I think there's about 6 of them maybe that you can get throughout the course of the game that just cover one piece, and they let you fill in the gaps on your quilt, but they used as sort of a reward for, or an incentive to play a particular way, so that the players are, you know, required to you know, try and think differently in order to try and get that one piece that they want. So when I set Restream up, I made it stream to Facebook because I got 3 platforms with my license. I've just seen my friend Darius has seen me on Facebook and has left some messages, but they're not coming through to the chat on here, which is kind of annoying. Yeah, that's a shame. Don't know what's going on there. But yeah, Darius, I thought it's got hexes, right? It's good. Inherently good because it's got nice hexagons that you put together. But it does make me wonder whether the designer has really sort of engaged with all of the popular board games that are about laying tiles. Because we looked at Carcassonne when we were looking at the marketing of this and how it talked about what you're doing in the game. I'm not like some marketing expert when it comes to things like that, but I have done, you know, writing copy for app stores and stuff like that, and it's one of those things that you can sort of see what's wrong when you look at someone else's work. You can't always work out how to fix it, and often the best way to fix it is just to pay a bit more attention to what really successful things have done. The problem with, you know, hobbyist game dev scenes on places like YouTube and stuff is a little bit of a case of the blind leading the blind sometimes, because, you know, if you want to know how to write a good description of your game that makes it sound good, you should be looking at like how they do it at a really successful publisher, right? Look at how they do it for, I don't know, Devolver Games or something like that. I'm struggling to see where this dark brown colour is. I'm starting to get my colours a little bit confused on this one. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, we've got 5 colours now. Yeah, the colours are getting a little bit similar, and I'm not even colourblind, so I know people will struggle with differentiating these at some point. And it's a big chunk of the population. It's like I think red-green color blindness is 1 in 10 men, and it's less prevalent in women, but that's still a very high rate, and that's only the most common type. But yeah, we've definitely seen a step up in complexity in terms of the amount of different tiles on this level. We've gone up to 5 types, I think. And it does really change the way the puzzly thinky bit feels to have this many combinations involved. It's very soothing though. I like it. I've got this whole other pockets that I haven't even started looking at yet on this one. And it is still just, I mean, it's effectively exactly the same as having the continents and the ocean, but it somehow feels different to interact with, which is kind of funny, because I know it's the same. I know it's the same, but something about it being sunken rather than risen is actually adding quite a sense of difference and variety that I would not expect it to. But maybe I'm just a very simple man with a simple brain. Oh, that's a good one. I think there is something really quite wholesome and noble about making an abstract game. There's nothing there to sort of puff up your game and, you know, make people think it's more important than it is. There's no story, there's no representation, there's nothing there that you can sort of point to and say, oh, this is why you should care about this game. It is just pure entertainment. And I think there's something really I think there's something sort of noble about doing that. I don't know if that's the word for it, but I can't think of a better word. But yeah, just giving people a kind of time, you know. It's like the game equivalent of being a musician and being okay with being like background music. You know, you're just there to... People are gonna have their time, they're gonna hang out with their friends, they're gonna chat. And your entertainment is not even, like, the star of the evening. It's just there. And I think being happy and content with providing that is, like... I don't know. I just think there's something cool about that. I always sort of take on too much whenever I do my own creative projects. Whenever I start a game, I'm not just necessarily talking about scope in terms of like how big I want the thing I'm making to be. It's just like at a conceptual level, I always sort of try and do things that are trying to do too many things at once, you know? And this is such a nice example of a thing that is doing one thing and just focusing on doing that one thing superbly well. And I want to see more of it. Not necessarily minimalist tile laying games about hexagons. I mean that kind of broad approach to just making a fun activity. I think it might be time to start this other pocket over here. Look at this one. That one looks a bit like a poo. Just a long straight poo. Oh, I keep finding new bits I haven't started yet. This is... I don't know if this is good to watch. I'm not adding much value here. I'm not providing much commentary at the moment, but it's very, very relaxing to play. I guess I if I want to give you the whole experience at home, I just need to I need to drop my voice an octave. I need to do some kind of ASMR voice like down here. Just like sort of Patrick Stewart, Captain Picard kind of voice like this. And then I can become an ASMR channel. Maybe if I can train myself to speak like that all the time. And then if all else fails, I can just stream myself reading bedtime stories or something. What's going here? I haven't mentioned it so far because I'm trying to be good, but I have a very immature brain in terms of interpreting what some of these shapes look like. So if you are watching this at home and you keep thinking that things look like genitals of some description, then I agree with you. I'm trying to be mature and not draw attention to it, but I am seeing so many different ghoulies in this rock formations and island shapes, and I'm trying not to be the guy who points it out, because you know, I'm being God here. I need to have some sort of nobility to me. It does make you wonder, if there is a God, does he laugh at things that, when you see them from space, does he laugh at things, or she, or they, non-binary God, do they see things from space that look like a wang, and then like have a little giggle about it? I don't know. I don't know when, sort of looking at the chat to see, I don't know when Hot Worlds posted that, but they said when they look at the copy for successful games, they think it's awful. Wouldn't have bought the game if you didn't already trust the developer. Yeah, I guess I'm talking specifically about like publishers like Devolver or Annapurna, like not necessarily sort of a self-published indie who kind of got lucky, you know, made a good game and then got lucky with visibility. I'm talking about like places that have professional marketers writing their copy for them. Because you will see certain things jump out that do just read a bit better. And I think one of the things I identified in the video the other day when I was looking at people's press kits they were sending in was not to use superlatives like great or best or most amazing, because it's like it really draws it kind of makes people aware that they are reading an advertisement. And that's why you generally won't see advertisements make those sorts of claims. They will tell you what's amazing about the game, but they will never say it's amazing, you know. It's a very hard thing to do though, and it's even hard just to think of examples, because it's a whole skill set in its own right. But it's all learnable. Look at this. This is so messy. Upsetting. Yeah, sorry if I'm a bit slow to respond to chat. I do not have a second screen, so I have to sort of tab out every time to have a look, and it's not ideal, you know. It's not. I'm aware I need a second screen, but there's a big list of things I need, and it's not at the top right now. But we'll get there eventually. I just need to practice the ASMR voice. And then we'll get people in the stream, even if they don't care about game dev, they'll just be like, where's that guy that sounds like Patrick Stewart? Now, you know what would be amazing as a sort of surprise on one level? Imagine if I finished building this, and then this black stuff was like a fog of war, and some of it disappeared, and then I could carry on building. That would be really fun. That would be a nice surprise. I'm gonna run out of space soon. But that's okay, because I need to go and eat some soup that I've made. Soup Saturday. We're trying to make Soup Saturday a thing. Is that going to be the last piece? Is it going to tell me there's no more space? It's going to make me search around for the last space remaining. Yeah, there we go. Oh, one more then, I suppose. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That's lovely. You can kind of rotate it so you make it more horizontal. I want it to be vertical though. This upsets me, horizontal. Look at this horrible straight line. How am I supposed to do that? How am I supposed to... That creates a strong sense of dread for me. And it's only because I've just played a bunch of levels, so I know how hard it would be to build in a straight line unless it's going to give me different shapes. But I have no way of knowing that until I just start playing around with it. Oh... Yeah. I don't... That's terrible. Why did I do that? Right, I need to keep reminding myself that I don't have to keep working on the same bit and I can put stuff elsewhere and then come back to it. Ooh. So it's kind of gone back to the tiles that we got on the first level, I think, which was just 3 color variations, but with a more awkward layout. And that is such a nice way of varying the experience. So instead of just like continuing in one direction of just adding more types of tiles every single time, or continuing in the direction of making the environment harder to put the tiles into, it sort of reins one of those axes back. So we're back to level 1 in terms of the amount of tiles we've got. We've only got 3 different colors of tiles, but the actual thing we've got to place the tiles on is a lot more awkward now. So I think in terms of the balancing, we're probably going to see this pattern continue. We'll go back up to 4 colors with an awkward one and 5 colors with an awkward one, and then we might get a really awkward one where we drop down to 3 again. It's a really neat way of structuring the balancing. It's really, really cool because it just makes them feel very different from each other, and it stops you getting overwhelmed, because it's like, yeah, you get to the point where it's more complex, and then when it gets more complex in another way, like those annoying perfectly straight bars that I don't know how I'm going to build anything on. When it gets annoying, when it gets hard, more complex in another way, there's the simplicity kind of goes down in the first way. So these are kind of it's like, yeah, pulling levers in different directions at different stages. It's really, really nice. Very, very good. I just hope that this gets seen by people, because, you know, my channel is not necessarily the place to get that. And I know people are sending me their games thinking, oh, people will see it if it's on this channel. But most of the people who watch my channel are there to sort of think about game dev, not necessarily there to find a new game to play, which is sort of the potential issue with doing anything like about game dev rather than about your game. You know, it's the same danger when you do devlogs. Oh no, we've got 4 colors now. We've gotten the orange back here. But yeah, there's always the risk with devlogs that you're just going to build up an audience that's just people that only care about game dev and don't actually specifically care about your game. And I have some theories on how to work with that. But I think largely if you're doing a devlog because you want people to look at and eventually buy your game, then that devlog needs to almost not really be about development. You know, it needs to basically focus on showing players what they want to see, which is player facing stuff like cool situations that can happen in your game, right? So no one as a player wants to see like, oh look, we've just added exploding barrels. Right? They want to see the sort of situation that exploding barrels can lead to. They want to see the dynamics between the mechanics. They want to see, oh, like, we put all of these exploding barrels in a line and blew them up, and now they do this domino effect. That's the sort of thing that players want to see. That's what will to them look like a game, rather than just someone messing around in a game engine. Like, we made something that explodes. Okay, but what can the player do with it that will make them feel sort of clever or creative or whatever it is you're trying to give people? That's the sort of thing that players need to see from developers to get excited about playing their game one day. Because a feature on its own is not, I mean, it is part of gameplay, right? But that's not really the sort of stuff that people get excited about. I have so many awkwardly shaped pieces of land here. So yeah, dev of Cosmotile. If you do watch this back, I don't know why you'd watch this much of it, but if you do watch this back, then I want you to sort of bear in mind that it's very rare for me to play a game that I'm sent for Indie Game Clinic for this amount of time. So that on its own is a sign that there is something good here. There is something special here. It's a simple game, but the parts come together to produce something that does really make you think in a way that you might not expect at the start of the game. And I think that's probably going to be the hard thing to convey when it comes to marketing it, is that there is a bit more depth there than there might initially appear to be. Why have you given me this one little island that I'm never going to be able to cover, though? That's annoying. Right, I'm really struggling to find anywhere to place a piece now, and it hasn't done that thing where it tells me there's nowhere else to go, so there must be somewhere. Yeah. That was the last planet in Expedition. That's not how you spell Expedition. Yeah, so that's the end of the demo, maybe. But I would expect to see that pattern kind of throughout the game, where there are some levels where you have lots of different types of tiles, and the space is kind of easier to fill, and then there are levels where you have less tiles but the space is very awkward to fit the space, and if you keep changing between those extremes, then the planets are going to feel quite different from each other. But if I was going to add stuff to this, if I was going to expand it, I would love to see a way to earn those little filler tiles that you know, to fill those awkward spots. They could even be cities, right? It could be, if you, I mean I know that takes it away from this sort of spacey abstract place, but they could be something special that just fills a single hexagon. I'd love to see a way to earn those. I don't know what it would be. Other scoring conditions to make placing particular types of tiles next to each other could be cool. I'd love to see the colorblind unfriendliness addressed, because that is going to be an issue for this. And yeah, I think it's really neat. I think there's something really cool there. If you do any sort of leaderboard type things where players can score different amounts on different planets and they can kind of brag about it somehow on a leaderboard, it would be nice to be able to name your planets. But no, those sorts of things introduce moderation issues. But yeah, it's lovely. It's a nice little game. That's all I have to say. Really well put together thing. And I could see it having more depth. But I'm not sure whether it needs it or not. I would have kept playing if there was more, and I think that's a very, very kind of good indicator. Nice. Let's see what else I've got in my inbox. I've got a couple of racing games, and I don't know if I'm gonna play them together. Got a drift racing game which has got like a PlayStation 1 kind of vibe, in terms of the sort of aesthetic, the way the 3D is done. I think it's really cool. And I have a game about racing chairs in an office, which looks quite funny. And I was wondering if I can kind of put together these games about racing and make a video out of it. But they're very, very different styles of games from what I can see so far. So